Before I start this unbelievable real lifestyle story, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because what happened on my land still keeps people talking, and you won't want to miss what came after the final twist. I faced HOA's hired guns on my own property, men who marched onto my land like they owned it, and what I set up overnight stopped them cold in their tracks. But the story begins long before that day, back when I moved to a small American town looking for peace, quiet, and a place to rebuild my life after losing almost everything in a messy divorce that left me as a single father raising my son alone. I bought a piece of countryside land just outside the HOA's map zone, or so I believed, a little patch of earth with a rundown barn, a crumbling fence, and enough open sky to make me feel human again. But within weeks, the HOA started circling like vultures, sending letters claiming my land actually fell within their extended management jurisdiction, a term they invented to gain control over every inch of dirt around them. At first, I ignored them because I knew the law was on my side, but they escalated fast, sending warnings about my vehicles, my shed, the color of my barn, even the fact that my son sometimes rode his dirt bike on the weekends. The HOA president, a sharp-tongued woman named Marlene, came to my gate one afternoon with 3 board members behind her and said, "You can cooperate now or pay later." And I knew at that moment that this wasn't about rules. It was about power, control, and the way HOAs in certain parts of America treat landowners like chess pieces instead of people. Still, I stayed calm, filed legal counter notices, and reminded them they had no authority over land outside their official map. But 2 weeks later, something happened that changed everything. I drove home from work to find men on my land. Big, uniformed, tactical-looking contractors hired by the HOA, taking photos, marking trees with spray paint, and measuring distances like they were preparing some kind of forced compliance project. My son was terrified, hiding inside the house with the dog because 3 of the men were shouting orders like it was a military zone. Rage shot through me, but I filmed everything, demanded their authorization, and they arrogantly claimed they had enforcement clearance from the HOA board, which was complete nonsense. No HOA in the United States can send armed-looking contractors onto private property without consent. But that didn't stop them. That night I barely slept, pacing the house, replaying every threat, every arrogant smirk, every moment they acted like my land belonged to them. I realized they weren't going to stop unless I forced them to. And that meant thinking smarter, not louder, so I did something most people wouldn't even dare. I stayed up the entire night researching property defense laws, rural security measures, and the limits of HOA jurisdiction under both state and county code, and I found something powerful. My land was not only outside the HOA boundary, but legally classified as agricultural rural exemption, which meant I could set up certain protective installations without a permit as long as they fell under livestock and boundary preservation safety, a phrase the county office defined loosely enough for me to use to my advantage. So that night, while the world slept, I installed something they never saw coming: a full livestock-grade electric perimeter fence system with motion alarms, boundary markers, legal signage, and a high-visibility red line bordering the exact surveyed edges of my property, all installed perfectly within the law. By sunrise, my land looked like a fortified zone, but legally, every inch of it was justified. The next morning, right on schedule, the HOA's hired guns came back, strutting in like they owned the place, and the moment they tried to step over the boundary, the motion alarms blared so loudly that half the valley must have heard it. The men froze, startled, stumbling back as the electric fence crackled, warning them with a high-voltage snap that made them jump like they'd seen a ghost. Marlene, who arrived moments later in her perfectly polished SUV, went pale when she read the legal boundary signage that clearly cited the county code she had no power over. She screamed that I had no right to weaponize my land. But I calmly handed her the printed law, highlighted in yellow, and told her the next time she or her hired thugs trespassed, the sheriff would file criminal charges on the spot. What she didn't know was that I had already reported the previous day's invasion, and the sheriff had been waiting for them to show up again. Just then, right on cue, a patrol truck rolled into my driveway. The deputy stepped out, reviewed my footage and paperwork, and told the HOA, "He's within his rights. You're not. Back off now or face charges." The hired men immediately backed away, their bravado gone, their hands shaking. For the first time, the HOA realized they had messed with the wrong landowner. Word spread through town that the HOA had been put in their place, And within a week, 3 board members resigned, Marlene lost her position, and the HOA formally issued a written apology admitting overreach and unauthorized enforcement action. Neighbors I never even met before came to shake my hand, saying they'd been bullied too, but were too scared to fight back. What I built overnight didn't just stop them, it exposed them, humiliated them, and reminded everyone that land rights in America still mean something. My son, who had been scared that day, finally smiled again, telling his friends at school, "My dad protected our home." And hearing that meant more than any victory I've ever had. And that's why I'm sharing this story, because HOAs across America sometimes forget that people are stronger than their paperwork, and courage backed by knowledge is stronger than any hired gun they can send. So if you ever face something like this, remember that one long night of preparation can change everything. And sometimes the moment you stand up for what's yours, the whole world stands up with you.